Jedi were just fairy tales. Hokey religions, ancient weapons, not for me. Moff was out to get me. Grief and Cara joined the team. The Empire hunted us on Tatooine. Mando showed his face in the Believer. Needed a trace of little green guy to find. Gideon wants his blood in the Believer. Din couldn't leave Grogu if he tried.
They said you were the best in the Parsec.
Welcome to
Parsec Passion, a podcast about Disney Plus's The Mandalorian, currently the only Star Wars live-action show that ever has existed. My name's Bubba, and with me as always is a man whose gloves are still wet. It's Catfish. Catfish, how you doing?
That's because I just washed them. That smell that's the scent I use, sweaty hand scent.
I was going to say, your cologne is rank.
But what rank is it?
We'll
find out tonight.
Right.
Oh, man.
Man, let me tell you something. Listeners, we are going to be reviewing in-depth Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 7, Chapter 15, The Believer. Catfish, let's get to it right at the top. What is your ranking for this episode, the first episode, the only episode so far of The Mandalorian not to feature Grogu? What is your ranking out of 10?
All right. So this might be incredible because despite that, I am going to give this 3, 4, 6, 6, 6 out of 3, 4, 6, 6, 6, 7. No, 3, 4, 6, 6, 6 out of 3, 4, 6, 6, 7 double M's.
I don't even want to ask, but I will. Double M's?
Mandalorian mugs.
Oh.
That's right. We got to see Din Djarin's mug today in this episode. He delightfully played someone who perhaps was not only deaf, but perhaps struck a little slow by the previous experiences that he had.
Well, Catfish, help us out. Is that a good ranking or a tough ranking? Since it's not out of 10, I'm a bit confused. Where did these point systems come?
Well, first of all, I put it on the inmate 346667. 34667
Okay.
rating.
Sure.
So it had, out of a possible 34667, it got 34666. So that's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's better than 9 out of 10 because there's a much smaller percentage. So that's my rating. What is your rating for this episode?
Catfish, I'm going to do it to our listeners again. Seemingly every odd episode in season 2, I've been a bit down on.
You are not going to do it.
Every even episode of season 2, I've been pretty high on, but every odd episode of season 2, I have been a bit down on. But only down to an 8, double C's out of 10.
Double C's?
Well, double C's is a true honor to you, in that it's 8 out of 10 Catfish castings. Now, Catfish, you are an actor. We've talked about this on the show before. You have appeared on many television shows I believe our listeners may have seen. And we joked a couple of weeks ago if you would be cast on The Mandalorian. Now, what is shocking is that they have cast you, but not as an actor, as somebody who's just sick and tired of Mando wearing that damn mask.
Yes. This is, you want to talk about fan service? Complete Catfish service in this episode.
Exactly right. Bill Burr was channeling Catfish, maybe that's the true double C, in demanding Mando take off that mask. And I only went 8 out of 10, only because I've been very, very high on some episodes this season. It was weird that this episode felt a bit slow after last week's incredible action. It felt like the action kind of took a natural step back this week. In previous episodes, I've named this episode's director, Rick Famuyiwa, as the best director on the show, and so he was back. I have heard from people online. I've had people texting me saying that this episode was great. For whatever reason, I thought it was good. I was charmed by it. I was really charmed by the episode, but maybe last week's high of action And I didn't feel like I got it this week. Had me down just a bit.
Here's what did it for me, Bubba. I mean, because if you put the percentages in, I've almost gave it like 99.999 out of 100. Is that, yes, this did not have the same amount of action. It had some cool action in it. It did have a bunch of things that I think when we get to it didn't quite make sense and you think more about. And
don't think about some of the things in this episode.
Yeah. But what I will say this is that maybe it was just me. I was really affected. There was a lot of emotion in this episode about the cost of war. And I know this is just a shoot 'em up, fun serial Western. But for some reason, that really hit me. And I thought that it was exceptionally well done to have this jokey character, Double B.
Double B?
Yeah, Bill Burr, the catfish lover.
Okay.
The catfish confirmer. He does the... maybe was I a little bit more drawn to him because of his constant helmet shaming? Yes. But that scene that he has when he's talking to Richard Brake, a.k.a. the Night King, who...
Hell yeah.
Somehow, I watched the end credits twice. I'm like, he doesn't get the end credits? I didn't see whether he got front credits, but that's not usually something that The Mandalorian does. So I thought that was a little strange. I thought that scene was amazing, and to see the emotion that Bill Burr had there, I was really drawn into that. And so for me, that made this episode great. Yes, I agree. The action wasn't as good. It didn't have that spark to it, but it had the emotional heft. I found myself more affected by sort of the cost of war in this episode than in any other Star Wars media thing that I've watched.
Wow, that is very strong. I love that you pointed out that this Imperial officer, who seemed to be a flashpoint of the episode when he offered Mayfeld and Mando to join him for a drink, that actor played the Night King only admittedly in season 4 and 5 of Game of Thrones. He's the one who, spoiler alert for that show, raised his arms on the pier the first time and had all the dead come back to life. Then he left the show because he wanted to be an actor where he got to say lines and things. And so they replaced him as the Night King with a stuntman for seasons 6, 7, and 8. And he was always my Night King. So I am giving a tip of my cap to Richard Brake, who also has had a role in Batman Begins, Catfish.
I mean, I looked him up afterwards, and he's had a role in quite a bit of stuff. He was amazingly menacing. They set it up really nice in that, they accomplished a lot with Bill Burr's character saying he might recognize me. First of all, they made the Mandalorian go in and take off his helmet, but also throughout that entire very, very tense scene with Richard Brake and him, not only was Richard Brake just so deliciously evil, and to me, the way that wasn't mustache twisting, but really evil, there was also the is he going to recognize him? So I thought that scene was incredible. Incredible.
Listeners, you've heard what we think. We want to know what you think. That's the big thing about our podcast. Believe it or not, listeners, we aren't the largest Star Wars The Mandalorian podcast out there, just because there are thousands.
It's not
literally
possible.
Thousands. And against Game of Thrones, we were one of the hundreds. Now we're one of the thousands. But we definitely care the most about your thoughts and love you, people we love to call double L's.
Double L.
Loyal listeners. And we care about what you think. And we've got some of your great feedback coming up. The way you can tell us what you think is, as always, write to us on social media at double PHQ. The word double, the single letter P, then the letters HQ for headquarters, at double PHQ on Twitter, on Instagram. On Facebook, just go to facebook.com/double PHQ. On YouTube, search double PHQ, search double P Media, double P Podcast. You'll find us. Like, subscribe. Tell us what you thought of this episode and what you expect for the big season finale just 1 week away, Catfish.
Ooh, I can't. I'm so sad that it's almost over and there's going to be no Star Wars content for us for an entire year.
For an entire year until Christmas of 2021. That's when they say that Mandalorian Season 3 will be coming. Listeners, you also have just a few more days to send us a screenshot, an image that proves you subscribe to the Parsec Passion podcast some way. Just however you get this podcast, whether it's YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podomatic. Just send us a screen grab of your subscription. You'll be eligible to win one of dozens of prizes, including this year's grand prize, the infamous 10-inch Mando and Grogu Funko Pop figure. The thing that is so nice, you will want to throw everything off the shelves and just get this on it. It is a wonderful prize, and we'll be giving that away to one lucky listener next week.
Wow.
Catfish, as we've been saying all season long, we're going to have a bit of a break. We don't know how long, but January, we don't see any shows that we'll probably be podcasting about or anything coming up that we'll be podcasting about. And so we're going to have a bit of a break. We always tell you to go check out all the podcasts we've done just this year. We're going to have done 10 podcasts on The Mandalorian, 10 podcasts on the HBO show Lovecraft Country, 7 podcasts on the Netflix show Babylon Berlin, 4 podcasts on the show Dark. We covered The Last Kingdom season 4 with a podcast. You and Double M did 16 podcasts on Penny Dreadful City of Angels.
Feels like 72.
And Double H, Holly Hunt Bands, will have done close to a dozen podcasts on his Dark Materials. I got to mention Tiny helped me out with the Dark podcast as well. We've covered so much stuff this year of 2020, listeners. There's plenty of back catalog stuff for you to check out. And we encourage you to, and to tell us what you've been watching, what you've been loving, and suggest shows you think we should add our silly blather to with podcasts. Let us know.
By my count, that is over 60 podcast episodes that the Double P Podcasting Network has pumped out this year. I mean, that is a lot of content.
That is too much content.
You can see why we're expanding and growing and why we're ranked so high.
Yeah, you can see and also hear why we're ranked so high.
Bubba, I may have mentioned this last week, but I noticed that Ash vs. Evil Dead, that Starz show that we podcasted on, great fun show, is now, for some reason, Starz decided it's not enough money and we're not driving enough people to sign up with Starz for our back catalog. We're going to sell one of our series to Netflix, which is exceedingly strange, but the upshot is Ash vs. Evil Dead is now on Netflix, so you can watch that and go back and listen to our Ash vs. Evil Dead versus Bubba versus Catfish podcast.
Have you been a re-listen to our podcast?
I guess I have to say yes.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't say the truth.
Okay. No, but
shameful.
For anybody who's watching it for the first time, you definitely should. That is a fun show.
Catfish, before we dive into this episode, we're going to briefly touch on the Star Wars news, which might have even overshadowed this episode, because on Thursday, the day before this episode premiered on Disney+, there was something known as the Disney Shareholders Conference, the shareholders meeting, where they want to impress upon their shareholders, yes, our parks are closed, the cruise ships are shut down with COVID, but we are going to be making money for Disney+. And we're going to cover this in detail later on in our Parsec Passion Grief Beef, where we battle it out, Catfish and I. But just at the top, let's talk about the Star Wars schedule coming down the pipe. This is insane.
It is crazy. They have decided to go all in on 2 things, and that is Star Wars and Marvel.
Yes, so Star Wars fans, grin and bear it, you're going to have a bit of a break for a while because The Mandalorian Season 3 will not premiere into what they're describing as Christmas of 2021. But in 2022, get ready for it. It's Cassian Andor, the Rogue One show. It's already been filming for 2 weeks here at this point. The show is named Andor, not Cassian, even though in the movie they kept calling him Cassian. I don't know if they mentioned his last name too much. In the shareholders' presentation, they didn't mention Alan Tudyk, the actor who portrayed the great droid K2SO in the film Rogue One. And when they announced this show was happening, they brought Alan Tudyk out on stage. So that's a bit interesting. These Mando seasons have been 8 episodes long. This Cassian Andor show, which admittedly might be a one and done show, it's going to have 12 episodes. Hello.
Wait, hold on a second. What's going on here? I want 12 episodes of The Mandalorian.
None for you. Also coming in 2022, you're going to have Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's going to start filming in a couple of months, probably late February, early March of 2021. And the show will be out in 2022. The big news from the investor meeting yesterday is that Hayden Christensen, the actor who portrayed Anakin Skywalker in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, he will be returning and appearing as Darth Vader in this show. Last week, we implied the Obi-Wan series was shooting in Boston, Mass, USA. It's actually shooting in Boston, Lincolnshire, England. So we messed that up last week. We did some very possibly offensive Boston accents. So this week, Catfish, do you have
possibly?
Catfish, do you have an offensive English Boston accent you want to do?
Well, sure I do, Governor. We would love to have some of this the Star Wars content. Yes, lovely. Isn't that the one with Spock?
Yes. Yes, those are offensive Boston English accents. And so that'll be also in 2022. Their Mandalorian spin-off series coming, you wouldn't imagine until 2022. One will be Ahsoka, a limited series implying one season, written by Dave Filoni, starring Rosario Dawson, who portrayed Ahsoka just a couple episodes ago. There's also going to be Rangers of the New Republic. It's a new series from the executive producer Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni's coming up to executive producer for that one. They say Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic, and The Mandalorian will intersect with future stories and culminate in a climactic story event.
Ooh.
Does that mean we have to watch those other shows to get to the end of Mando? This will be interesting to see. Will that show called Rangers of the New Republic, will that be a Cara Dune spinoff? Could we see Cobb Vanth? Could we see Fennec Shand? They didn't mention Cara Dune in the shareholders meeting, so we could be waiting to see if she is going to start accepting wearing masks during a pandemic, but we shall see on that one.
Why don't they just call that one Rangers of the New Republic and Dune Plorables?
Possibly. That's a shout out for our listener, Gavin.
It's he's finally paying close attention to the podcast.
Right. Okay, there's no release date set. No idea when they're going to start filming these next couple of live-action series. Lando, from Justin Simeon, the creator of the critically acclaimed series Dear White People. We don't know if that's going to feature old as grandpa Billy D. Williams or if it's going to feature Donald Glover from the Lando portrayal in the Solo's A Star Wars Story movie. Also coming up in this one is pretty interesting, called The Acolyte. We mentioned last week that the creator of the Netflix series Russian Doll was assigned a show. It's Leslie Headland. And we didn't know what the show was. This week we find out that it's going to be a mystery thriller that takes the audience into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic. So this is fascinating because this will be like 200 years before any of the Star Wars that we actually know. There are going to be some animated shows, which is the Star Wars The Bad Batch, a spinoff of the Clone Wars animated show. And what will be interesting is this will be set seemingly based on what we saw after Order 66, after the Jedi have been wiped out. There was an animated version of Fennec Shand who appeared in the trailer. There's going to be Star Wars Visions, an anthology of anime shorts, a droid story with R2-D2-C3PO. Then, after we get all of this content, probably a lot of it in 2022, in Christmas of 2023, we're getting the next Star Wars movie, Rogue Squadron. Starfighter pilots earn their wings and risk their lives in a new movie from Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins. And then in 2025, we're going to get that untitled Taika Waititi film that they've been hinting about for a bit.
They did mention a 2027 movie without any specific stuff. And so this is interesting that they're going back to, after they did, episodes 6, 7, 8, they had Rogue One, they had Solo. I think we're going to stagger this a little bit more. The person who said that is no longer the person who's running everything for these. So it looks like they have decided that's not the problem. It's not the problem that we've got too much Star Wars content and it's stepping on each other. We're all in.
Right. The problem is it's not all on Disney Plus.
Feels like The Mandalorian kind of made people go, okay, well, this is all right. The content is king, and I'm a little bit surprised here, because part of when they were announcing all this, I was sort of making fun to you a little bit because I said, okay, well, first of all, they say things are going great. We expect Disney Plus to be profitable in 2024. I was like, wow, that is a few years off. Now, granted, they are obviously plugging a lot of money into this. But the other thing is that they're expecting to be profitable because they're expecting to have, they said, 230 to 260 million subscribers. Now, they have done great gangbusters. This first year, they announced they have 86.8 million subscribers. But by my calculations, they're expecting to have 3 times the subscribers between presumably just adding more Star Wars and Marvel content. So, I mean, what are your feelings about that? You think that there are people now who are like, nah, there's not enough on there, and then all this extra content is going to get them to join?
I think one of the things that we can't go too deep in about this shareholders meeting is they believe that one of the holes in their programming service is adult content. And they're adding this whole new kind of side panel called Star Plus, I believe it's called here in the United States, where they're going to have some more adult content. And if they can get more adults to subscribe, and if they can get this stuff like Star Wars, which can appeal to adults and children, that'll allow them to triple their subscribers. Let me say, we've been doing adult content here on the podcast, and our numbers haven't tripled. So,
well, I mean, while they have a lot of things so far, I mean, if you go into Disney Plus, there is quite a large breadth of things. It's not just, the old movies flubber. They're really going in on a lot of doggy material. I'm still a little skeptical that they're going to get, they haven't doubled down. They've I don't even know. I'm going to say octupled because I don't even know what they tentupled. They've tentupled down on Star Wars and Marvel content instead of going, I mean, obviously I think the Netflix, we're going to just do something for everybody and hope that grabs people, maybe is a little too scattershot, but it does feel like it's all a little concentrated to actually expand their subscriber base by 3 times, to have 3 times the subscriber base. But we'll find out. This is our wager between you and me.
Love it. Listeners, what do you think? Are you excited about all this content? I've actually, even though I hear so many positive things about these Mandalorian episodes, I've had some people text me or talk to me on social media and say, hey, this could be overkill. And they're a bit worried about having too much Star Wars. We'll see. Once again, what do you think? At PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/PHQ. Leave those YouTube comments in our Grief Beef Battle. Coming up at the end of this podcast, we're going to be talking about which project we should be the most excited for and which project we might want to, that could be scary. That's coming up at the end of the podcast. But Catfish, are you ready to jump into Chapter 15, The Believer?
Let me just say one more quick, just short thing about this.
Sorry. I did such a good transition.
I think you could do so. I think you can. There's no such thing as too much content or too much of one thing. It's just a matter of how good it is. Okay. If The Mandalorian wasn't as good, we probably wouldn't be talking about all these other things. Can all these other things be good as The Mandalorian? Unlikely. It's great.
All right. So now, since you cut off my brilliant transition,
I ruined it.
What's up? What do you think about this? All right, so no, seriously. People loved this episode. People felt very strongly about it. Catfish, last year's end of the season crew was Ugnulty Quill, the Ugnaught. We had IG-11, the reformed assassin bounty hunter droid. We had Cara Dune, we had Greef Karga, and we had Mando, a bunch of blurgs. This year's team, very human-based. It seems like it's Mando, Cara Dune again, but now we have Fennec Shand, Boba Fett, and we're bringing in Mayfield. How do you feel this year's Gather Up the Troops team compares to last year's?
I really like this. As you say, it's sort of more people-based. although I will say that sometimes Cara Dune's facial expressions do feel that they're almost CGI. But
Terrible.
I know it's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. But Ms. Catfish shakes her head a lot at Cara Dune's acting. I like this crew. I like him to be a little bit rougher. I mean, Nolte, he was a great guy, but he was a little preachy, and I like my rebels to be more out there. I like him to be a little bit more frisky.
This team has a lot of formerly bad guys, I would say, on it. And Mayfeld, who would have thought that he could turn it around from last year's Mayfeld to this year's? One thing that I think is very interesting that they put on the previously on, before this episode, is they reminded us that that New Republic officer who got killed in last season's Prison Break episode, it wasn't Mayfeld who killed him. And so I think that's another way you can be easier to accept that Mayfield is going to be a guy we're rooting for by the end of this. They bust him out of prison. How would you like to be at the chop shop there, busting up old TIE fighters? Did you like that planet? Did you like where poor Mayfeld ended up?
You know, it's clear by the way he acts when they take him away that this is not the worst job ever. Probably feels to me like it's even on his list. It's like probably right in the middle of like jobs he's had as far as like how bad they are. He's like, where are you taking me? I mean, for me, if I was stuck on a planet doing that, I'd be like, I don't care where I'm going. You're leading me to my death. That's fine. No, him. He wants to make sure it's where I'm going worse than here because this ain't bad.
Great point. What's interesting is when he sees Boba and has that very funny line, "Oh, thank God, I worried you thought you were this other guy." And then when he sees Mando and he's like, "Oh no, you coming to kill me?" Well, Mayfeld, he could have killed you last year, but he actually spared your life. He threw you in a prison. So he's not coming to kill you. He's coming to recruit you. Cara Dune has enough pull within the New Republic to spring a prisoner accused of what he's accused of, serving a 50-year sentence. Whoa, good work, Cara Dune.
I tell you, that is... I was sort of scoffing when she got her little Marshall shield there. I didn't think that it would do much, but apparently she's got lots of pull.
Yeah, it's impressive. Also impressive, Boba Fett had some work done. He got his armor back, and I was growing used to... I'm such an old school Star Wars fan that his armor here post Sarlacc pit, I was like, oh, it's too scuffed up, it's too messy. He smells like paint. Can you believe that the first thing you do when you get your Beskar armor back is say, let me call Bob Ross and see if he can fix this for me.
I was surprised too, and I wondered because holy cow, that looks completely new, and I wondered how longtime fans would feel about like, wait a second, you can't just retcon this armor, but it does make complete sense. Like, all right, let's, I don't want to look like complete crap.
Well, some fans have said, hey, this new paint job really makes him look like that initial action figure, which, if you remember those old action figures, they kind of had very stark colors, and they wouldn't do scuff marks and things like that. Other online fans have said, Disney, you were trying to see if I would buy yet another Boba Fett action figure. Well, cleaned up armor action figure, I'm going to go get it. So it seems like people, at least online, are willing to cough up a couple extra bucks for Mando Rev 3. Boba Rev 3. Yeah. Another hilarious Easter egg for people who bought those original toys and or people like you who are like, how does Boba Fett's spaceship work? Did you catch when they stepped onto the spaceship, the Slave One, and as it's taking off, there's a bit of a gyroscope so that the floor always stays level to how the ship is flying. I thought that was great.
I did notice that because I remember I exactly talked about that for far too long last week on the podcast. I was like, wait, how does this happen? So it was really cool that they showed us how it worked.
Now, I had the old Slave One action figure toy back in the 80s when I was a little kid. It had that same action. The cockpit would turn based on how it was. And like all those great pieces of plastic, it would soon break and you'd be like, oh, okay, that's fine. But I loved it. Just seeing that, I was like, ooh, this is cool. So, okay, like with every episode this year, we've got one mission, and this mission is really about sending us on the next mission. So, okay, this mission, go to a secret Imperial refinery so we can plug in and find out where Moff Gideon's ship with Grogu is. What did you think of this premise We got to break in. We're not breaking out of prison. He got out of prison just by Cara Dune saying, you're free. But instead, we got to go undercover and break into an Imperial base. What did you think?
Okay, so this is one of the things that I just had to hand wave about this episode. Are you telling me that's the only terminal? When we see it, it's essentially in the cafeteria. So obviously, this is not like something that you can't find in many places. Not one person goes, isn't there another place we can go that is maybe not so difficult to get into?
No.
Nobody says, how about here?
Listen, it's not only that the cafeteria is where you have to go. They will only sell food to people who aren't New Republic people. If you're not in the New Republic, you get food. If you are in any way tied to the New Republic, no soup for you. This is another thing you don't want to think too much about.
Well, right, because you don't want to think too much about it because it makes sense that it would reject you if it recognizes you as a bad person. But what doesn't make sense is that it would accept you if it doesn't recognize you at all.
Right. Now, these are the type of things that Trump's lawsuit was complaining about.
So you're saying anybody could vote?
Anybody could get in as long as you're not a... Okay, boy, edit. There go our downloads even more. So, okay, we've got to go in. And then we come up to the crux of the episode, what this episode is really about. Mayfield, later on, after they break into this tank that's hauling in this refined material, Mayfield gets to it. He goes, everybody's got their lines they don't cross until things get messy. We are setting up, Mando, you're the star of this show. You have to be the one with Mayfield to get in. But it's going to require you to do two things you don't want to do. And the first one is you can't go in wearing your helmet. You've got to take that helmet off. This is pretty big. You knew that Grogu means so much to Mando. He has to do it. But it is this weird thing. What is the real rule? Is the real rule don't show your face, as Mayfield questions later, or is the real rule we've given you this Mandalorian armor. You're going to wear it all the time. What do you think, Catfish? What does the show led us to believe?
I thought that it was just that he had to keep his face hidden so that as a Mandalorian, you just had to keep your face hidden. So, for example, like you had to get your helmet fixed. Well, it can't get fixed while it's on your head. So when you go to the helmet fixing shop, they give you an approved towel. It's the Mandalorian towel that you have to wear over your head.
Right. We've seen him last year. Last year we saw him take it off when he had that soup in the village with Omara, the school marm there that he helped protect her little village last year. So it is fine to take off the helmet. But what's interesting is you can't be seen, and so you can just go out in public in anything like a towel to cover you up. Is that what we're supposed to be seeing? Or is this first, hey, I'll put on this stormtrooper armor? Is this the first of a slippery slope where Mando's forgetting all of his vows, all of the things he considers to be true to be a Mandalorian?
The stormtrooper helmet certainly did seem like a gateway drug to taking his helmet off altogether. So it's funny that this debate that we're having, it could have been a debate that we kept going on if he had only just stayed under that helmet. But he takes the helmet off altogether, so it really doesn't matter whether it's stormtrooper or it has to be the Mando helmet, because he just gives the whole thing away in this episode.
Well, before we get to that, we do have a couple action beats, and let's get to this first one. It's the equivalent of we're going to overtake the stagecoach, if this is a Western. We're going to overtake the stagecoach, and then, people are attacking the stagecoach. We've got to protect it. What did you think of this big action set piece? A lot of people have noted that what's fun about it is that Mando doesn't have any of his great gadgets that come with his suit. He doesn't have his whistling birds. He doesn't have his guns or the protection of Beskar. You know, he gets hit and this crappy tank stormtrooper armor breaks. So did you like this action set piece? What did you think?
I did, although it did feel a little bit as a cheat to me in that, you know, we saw him take down like 3 groups and then all of a sudden a bunch more. This was like last week's episode with the clown car of enemies. They just keep coming and coming and coming. it didn't feel to me that it was set up as much kind of what was going on here. Was it to you?
Catfish, I want to follow up on exactly what you're talking about. And one of the reasons why maybe I didn't connect. When these aliens on these skiffs show up, the first words are, hey, they're pirates coming, they're pirates coming. But pirates want to loot your bounty. They don't want to blow it up. So when I saw this action set piece, in my own mind, I'm thinking, Mando, you might be killing the good guys. These are people trying to destroy this fuel, this substance, so that the Imperial remnant can't have it. And I'm thinking to myself, Mando, stop killing these people. They're doing the good work. But it was still a very fun action piece. I especially liked where he threw the thermal detonator. It blew up one ship, and then the skiff behind them realized, oh no, we're about to fly into a fireball. And the one alien's eyes got so wide. I loved it. I thought it was good action. But it was this weird moral space we're in, which ends in a moral space I really love. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking about, hey, X-Wings show up, and is it the first time in a Star Wars film, in a Star Wars property where we're like, oh no, X-Wings have shown up. This week, the TIE fighters swoop in to save the day. We're seeing the Empire, these stormtroopers celebrate it happy. Hey, you did it. Mission successful. It is a great switcheroo. I loved it.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I'm rooting for the bad guys.
Yeah.
I'm happy that the bad guys showed up. But you're completely right, too, where I thought, okay, yes, they're doing what they need to do, but clearly they are taking down the people who are being oppressed.
Yeah, that's the way it definitely comes across. Admittedly, these were aliens on skiff. They didn't seem to be humans, like the human children that they drove through. Another interesting thought. So let's jump back to that for just a half a second here, Catfish. When they're driving through and you see these children living in very rough conditions.
Squalor.
And then Mayfield is saying, to them, Empire, Republic, it doesn't matter. Somebody's ruling and they're on the bottom suffering. Did you think that was a good message? Did you think to yourself, well, you've got to sell it a bit more? As bad as the New Republic may be in trying to establish a system of government, they're not trying to blow up planets that say no, like the Death Star. So what did you think of that moment? What did you think? How do you think the show dealt with getting that across?
As I said, I gave this such a high rating because I really felt like that whole thing really came home. For me, it's sort of the effect of this war. I mean, it's funny because we talk about Game of Thrones and it's the whole idea of like, I thought with George R. R. Martin was like, let's see what happens, how war affects not the people fighting for pieces of land, but the people who live on that land. I felt like maybe the books maybe did that a little better than the show did. But again, in Star Wars, we're seeing the upper crust people fighting, and in some ways we don't see this. And so I was affected by this more than I have been in other Star Wars things, where for sure, yes, okay, there is one group of people that is evil, but it doesn't matter if people are destroying your land while they're fighting. It doesn't matter who the good guys are and who the bad guys are.
Right. If your land gets destroyed, you're screwed either way. Good point. Also during this ride, even seemingly during the attack and post-attack, Mayfeld is just constantly needling Mando. My favorite line is he takes off the helmet and he's like, it's better off. He's like,
I know.
Forget this being a gateway drug to taking off your helmet. Mayfeld's your pusher.
And I thought all that stuff that he did here talking about this, all this stuff, I thought it was there was some really good double M.
Double M?
Yeah, Mayfield Mando-splaining.
Oh, he was. He was like, listen, buddy, it's all the same. And so I did love it. I think what's great about having Mayfeld on the team, even if it's for just this one episode, is we as an audience want to know, well, why are you so strict? We're learning about Mando and his code as a child of the Watch. And so somebody pushing him for answers, even if Mando's not the most talkative person, that's a great mix of characters. And so it's really good. They get into this Imperial base. It's a dam. They're refining this. I want to call it coaxium, but that's exactly what happened in the Solo, a Star Wars movie. Instead, this is a different substance. It's like fuel that's very volatile, and you can't go fast with it. You can't do anything with it or it'll blow up. They get in, and it's like you said, there's one ATM in the place, and it's in the cafeteria. Or is that just the closest? Maybe it's the closest one.
All I'm saying is, if it's in this spot on this base, there's got to be an easier place to get into that has one also just hanging around somewhere.
Mando, what are you doing? There's one right here by the water fountain. So Mayfeld can't go in because he's worried he'll be recognized. If you're worried you'll be recognized, Mayfeld, put the damn helmet back on.
I was surprised that he took it off. Fine. It's
Right.
fine for him to take it off to be like, to do some Mando shaming. But I would think if you killed somebody and you're going back to a base, I don't care how many people are back at that base, I'm going to put my helmet back on so people don't go, who the heck are you?
Right. No, everybody's like, hey, here's this person we've never seen. Probably because he never took his helmet off before. It's fine.
Right. It's fine. It's fine. So, yes. So put your helmet back on. Everyone else was wearing it on the base. It would have been fine to keep wearing it in the base. Now, he would have had to have taken it off when he got to the ATM. That's fine. You can angle your way away from the Night King and try it. Things got a little bit manipulated in a way that I could see if it bothered people. It didn't bother me. I was all on for it. As we all know, I'm #helmet off.
Catfish, this moment, it's another reason why I'm slightly downer on the episode. We need to see the internal conflict in Mando about, okay, it is really my code. It is my creed that I will not show my face to anybody else. But this is about Grogu. This is the child. But of course, comically, because we can't see his face, we can't necessarily see that conflict in him. And so to me, this should have been a giant point. Hey, I am breaking this code. I am breaking this thing that said me. But instead, it didn't truly come across to me how monumental this should be for him. Maybe in some of his later actions and behaviors, we got to physically see after the fact, wait a minute, walking around in public with everybody able to look at my face, this is freaking me out a bit. But in that specific moment where he makes the choice, Grogu is too important to follow some set of rules. That didn't hit as hard for me as it could have and it should have, I thought.
I agree with you as well. And I also thought it's funny to see him. I wonder if his whole idea while acting was, well, this is a guy who never makes facial expressions because it doesn't matter if he makes facial expressions. He seemed to be very flat and inexpressive with his face on purpose. Obviously, this guy's a great actor.
Right.
So I thought that was a little weird too, because again, you're right, we don't get to see that, but also with his helmet off, it's like, here's our chance to see some expression from him. And as I said, he was performing as if almost he was in a daze, kind of.
Right. And what I wondered, seeing Din Djarin here with his helmet off, and, you know, he's not sure where to look, not sure what to do. Seemingly on his face, you can read that he's confused in this daze that you're talking about, Catfish. In my own headcanon, I thought, well, what if he's always like that underneath the mask and we just never knew?
Well, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. He doesn't bother to make facial expressions because no one's going to see him anyway.
Right. Why work those muscles? It's pointless.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's another thing people have pointed out. Now, once again, this moment is a giant deal. Even if it didn't hit as hard for me, I understand intellectually, even if emotionally it didn't hit me how hard it was, how big a deal this is. Because why? Back in season 1, in the episode Sanctuary, Mando told Cara Dune, when she asked him what happens if he takes the helmet off in front of others, he said to her point blank, you just can't ever put it back on again. So, whoa. He obviously doesn't obey that because at the end of the episode, he's wearing his Beskar again. But technically, if he's going to be a strict follower of this code, he took his helmet off. Well, he didn't take it off in front of others. He's going to use some legalese. But last year, he said you can't ever put it back on again.
That's true, but if the constant barrage of anti-helmet propaganda that he got in this episode was the only anti-helmet propaganda he's gotten this year, but it's not. And so I wonder if they've kind of been laying that up. First, he found out that there are real Mandalorians who take their helmets off. And in fact, whether he believes it or not, he's been told that this is sort of a splinter minority, perhaps a wackadoodle creed to always keep your helmet on. And then besides that, he interacts with Boba Fett and he recognizes that Boba Fett is worthy enough to wear the Mandalorian armor, and Boba Fett, he has no problem with Boba Fett taking his helmet off. So I feel like that he's been getting a lot of messages this season that helmet off is okay. I'm not saying that I wouldn't we still think it's a big deal, and I agree with you that in an ironic fashion, it would have been nice to see how difficult it was for him to take off his helmet, but we couldn't because he had his helmet on at the time when he decided to make that choice. But I feel like we've gotten a lot of story hints this year that have pushed him in this direction. And in fact, I believe in that more than it's so funny when he says at this end of this episode how much Grogu means to him. Because he feels like the sort of lone Western guy on a mission. It still feels like the mission is more important to him. That feels like that's what drives him. He's been tasked with a mission, and I still haven't bought, partially because of we haven't been able to see any facial reactions or whatever. I still haven't bought like his super strong connection to Grogu. So to me, it feels like more like it's his job rather than like this is a being that he's dedicated to. When he said that in the episode, I was like, whoa, that feels strong to me. What are your feelings about, like, do you buy his strong feelings for Grogu? Have you sensed a growing of this relationship between him and Grogu?
We as an audience are doing all the hard work, meaning that we as an audience have such a strong emotional connection to Grogu because this puppet is so cute. Grogu is solid gold cuteness, Grogorable. Even when he's not in the episode, they're Grogorable moments because he's so awesome that we can't imagine that Mando doesn't have the same feeling. So I think kind of this universal love of Grogu is being projected onto Mando. A part of me thinks that is this current predicament really Ahsoka's fault? Like the tracking beacon was on Mando's ship. If Ahsoka had just taken Grogu and trained him, everything would be good. Moff Gideon would have no idea where he was. Thanks a lot, Ahsoka. And there go all our downloads there as well.
Oh, boy. You cannot be anti-Ahsoka.
I know, that was a big mistake. Catfish, I have to admit, I'm not the biggest Office Space fan, so I didn't get this reference when it came out in the episode. Did you get the infamous TPS reports reference when Mayfield is trying to cover for a stunned in a day's helmetless Mando?
I didn't quite get it, and I wonder if that was something that he dropped in himself and that was not exactly written.
Yeah, either way, huge fans of Office Space loved it. That this thing, which in the title implies Office Space, this pointless office work that drives us crazy at times when you work in an office, the TPS reports. And I think even in the movie they referred to as something as like the pointless something or others. It gets a drop here, which everybody loved. But of course, Mayfield's doing this because this character actor, we keep mentioning him, he played the Night King, he comes up, and he is great. This guy, he's really creepy.
Oh, dear.
No, I'm saying this actor is creepy. He's got a face that says, don't trust me. I thought he was great. He was a great presence. And some people are obviously referencing Inglourious Bastards, where the imitation Nazis beat the real Nazis and try not to blow their cover. This scene, I knew at a certain point he would invite him over for a drink. Hey, they're the heroes who just got this incredible tank through the obstacle course on the way into the refinery. But he's also an a-hole. So yes, the Empire, the New Republic, who's ever in charge, these people can be tough. But you can see the difference now. You can see the true blind hatred that can be in the Imperials. And so this officer, he says the line that I had to write down. It was so terrible. He says, everybody thinks they want freedom, but what they really want is order. The First Order, coming soon in the trilogy. What did you think of this performance? What did you think of this tense moment? As you know, Mayfeld is, headed up to here with this a-hole.
I mean, I did not think he was going to go hog wild by this. I mean, as he's talking earlier in the episode, you could see it affects him, but he's still trying to play it cool. So it's great to see the emotion pick up in him, and then to see him just go, oh, well, whatever. We're slightly outgunned here. I don't care. I thought it was a very important line, though, that you mentioned, everyone thinks they want freedom, but what they really want is order. Mm-hmm. Because I felt like that really was speaking right to this very week, because I feel like some people say that they want democracy, but what they really want is for their guy to win.
That's order.
Yeah, it is order of a certain kind, for sure.
Listen, everybody thinks they want freedom, but they really want is order. And Supreme Court, I order you to name me president. Now, Catfish, this past situation, which drove Mayfeld out of the Empire. Once again, he was an Imperial sharpshooter, and when we first met him in season 1, he was like, I'm no longer Imperial. I'm not with this Imperial remnant. It was mentioned it was Operation Cinder. This is some of the Star Wars legend and lore that was introduced with Disney. Marvel Comics, in a 2015 limited series comic run called Star Wars Shattered Empire, introduced it. It also appeared in the video game Star Wars Battlefront 2. What was Operation Cinder? It was the Emperor Palpatine's contingency plan should the rebels ever defeat him. It was put into action immediately following the events of Return of the Jedi and the destruction of the second Death Star. What was Palpatine's contingency plan? If they get me, screw them over. Wipe out the rebellion and their sympathizers with an array of climate-disrupting satellites that would target planets and wreak havoc. This went on for a year after the second Death Star blew up in the Star Wars lore, and it ended at this thing known as the Battle of Jakku. Jakku is what? It's the planet where we first saw in The Force Awakens, where Rey is from, and there were all those starships destroyed in the desert. Those starships in the desert went down as part of the final battle of Operation Cinder, the last gasp of the Empire before it became this group we're seeing now with Moff Gideon. Mayfeld doesn't care. He whips out his gun, shoots the guy right in the chest. One of my favorite moments of this episode. How would you like to be that stormtrooper carrying a tray with a drink on it, and you're like, I finally got my break, and you walk into the break room, and you're like, oh, crap. I loved that moment. That was a great bit of acting from a guy in a mask. I loved it.
It was really great, and I guess I didn't see his straw, because the stormtroopers don't take their helmets off either.
Well, he was going to have to go to the kiosk. And
they just serve soup.
So this is it. We have our second action set piece of the episode. It's breaking out of the Imperial base. We're going out a window. Some people are having flashbacks to the movie version of The Fugitive as people fell over the dam. Finally, Fennec and Cara Dune can get in the action as they sniper rifle and kill anybody threatening Mando and Mayfeld. Boba can get back in the action as he flies Slave One to rescue them. And in another callback, Easter egg, bit of fan service, however you want to describe it, Boba Fett takes out the last 2 TIE fighters with the infamous sonic blast that his dad used against Obi-Wan Kenobi in Attack of the Clones. Oh, that was another great highlight. I loved it.
Man, they had a lot going on here. Very cool.
Mayfeld does his last bit of redeeming, where he blows up the whole base with one great sharp shooting shot to prove that he wasn't a stormtrooper because he hit it from so far away. Cara Dune can tell that's a great shot. We get this redemption. Who would have thunk it? You committed some terrible crimes, but because you did a couple of nice things, we're going to let you out and let you go free. Hey, happy ending. We can see Mayfeld again. Hurrah!
Is he stuck on this planet? I mean, I'm sure we will see him again.
What if they cut back and now he's on the planet cutting up the TIE fighters? You know, he was in a prison before. Now he's like, well, what have I got on this planet? Nothing but these destroyed TIE fighters. All right, guys, let's cut them up.
What if he just decides to put a helmet back on and go in and just, fill the power vacuum that now exists?
He walks in with a helmet on. He's like, hey, guys, what happened? I was driving one of the tanks and these pirates hit me. I missed everything. Boy, this place is a mess. Okay, I'm in charge.
Love it.
Okay, now this final bit, I also don't want us to think about too much because I'm not sure it makes too much sense. Cara Dune, we've got the coordinates. What do we do now? Mando, let's warn him that we're coming. Mando decides to do a mic drop to Moff Gideon. Call back. Remember how you said what you said in season 1? I'm going to repeat it back to you in season 2. Boy, we've all had some bad Zoom meetings. How do you think Moff Gideon took this one?
I mean, I don't. Why would you poke the bear? I'm not sure why he did that. I mean, it's not like you're like, well, Moff Gideon's going to go off his game and he's going to get pouty and do something irrational. It feels like. I mean, I thought it was cool. I just don't know why he did it.
Now, Gideon knows everything we need to know. He knows Mando's name is Din Djarin.
Mm-hmm.
How in the world can they defeat him? Gideon's on a big ship. It's not quite as big as those old Star Destroyers from the movie, but he's on a big ship. You would assume there are a lot of forces on his ship. We know there are these dark troopers, these either evil droids or droid-human hybrids out there. How is Mando going to be able to rescue Grogu and Willie? I've come around. Originally, I thought Grogu would be in Gideon's hands, and that would be a cliffhanger for season 2. Now I flipped the script. I think somehow Mando is going to save him somehow. What do you think? What are your thoughts about Operation Rescue Grogu?
Well, I wonder if there will be some sort of cliffhanger. I think we all thought, what happened with the Grogu being taken happened earlier than we thought. So that now leaves us with the idea that, okay, maybe he will be taken. But what if, follow me on this, what do you think the howling outrage would be is if the end of season 2, all of them are captured and are in jail, are being held by Moff Gideon?
I would love it. That would be wonderful. And Grogu has to save them? I think that's a great idea.
Oh, man, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. The other thing would be amazing if Moff Gideon sent a message out to everybody. Hey, I don't know how many of you out there haven't changed your password in 5 years, but can we do that? Let's try to enforce password changing so that somebody who hasn't been with us for years can still access things.
Moff Gideon, I've got some great Norton anti-theft software on this.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you just, at a certain point, you give up. You're just like, you know what? It's just too hard. We've got to always enforce updates across, how hard it is to enforce updates across a company, to do it across planets and galaxies. It's very tough.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Hey, well, that's the episode. The other slight reason, it just felt like a mellow episode. I mentioned I was charmed by it, by all the quippy dialogue back and forth and interesting turns in it. But to me, because I don't really know where we're going in this final episode of season 2, it didn't throw me into, okay, what's going to happen in the final episode? Instead, it was like, something might happen in the final episode. And so, listeners, if you disagree, whatever your thoughts are, please write to us and tell us at DoublePHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. Catfish, are you ready to go to our feedback?
Oh, yeah, let's, since you just said we want to hear our feedback, let's read some people's feedback so that they know their feedback matters.
All right. On Twitter, we heard from Rob the Toon Man, which is exactly how it sounds, at Rob the Toon Man on Twitter. Rob wrote, "Love your show. I'm Mando ready. Since a lot of The Mandalorian is looking like a Western, there needs to be a Magnificent Seven style rescue. His 7,
okay.
He says...
he's got him. Let's hear him.
He's got a 7. He says Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, 3, Ahsoka, 4, Mayfield, 5, Grief Karga, 6, Cara Dune, 7, Bo-Katan. Now, what's interesting, in his Magnificent 7, he doesn't include Mando. Mando wasn't
I was
going to
say the same thing. It's not like the Three Musketeers where there's actually 4 of them.
Right.
The Magnificent 7, there's really only 7. So I don't know, does that mean that number 7 drops off? Or I wonder if Rob's would reconsider including the person the show's named after in the 7 who comes off.
He does include Cobb Vanth as possibly a sub in, like if somebody has to tap out. How's this?
Okay.
How's this, Rob? Here's my pitch to you. What if Frog Lady is the 7th?
Yes. Or how about the client's head in a jar?
Hey, now, come on. Some things are too cruel to joke about, Catfish. Well, Catfish, I've had this thought. What if somehow we met those ice spiders on the frozen planet? What if he somehow could get a hold of a bunch of those and release those on the Imperial ship to cause a distraction while he's rescuing Grogu.
Oh, man, that's a great plan. And do you actually rescue Grogu, or do you just let him go on and you wait like 8 hours and hope for the best for Grogu?
Right, you release him, the ice spiders kill everybody, and then Grogu eats the ice spiders. Game over. It's done.
Oh, heck yes. Yes.
We also had this bit of feedback from Mara Butler, who just wrote, "Love your podcast." Oh, thank you so much, Mara. You are, because you sent in that screen grab proving you subscribe, you are eligible to win in our drawing next week.
I love it. We got some more feedback from Holly Hunt at Hunt Pants, who does the Dust podcast with Matt Murdock. She said, favorite episode of the season. Wow, that is interesting.
Well, you rated it pretty high, Catfish. Is it your favorite episode?
I did. It's not my favorite episode of the season. I still think it's a great episode. Not my favorite of the season, but up there. Matt Murdock, also with the Dust podcast, says, at Musical Concept, says, let's just say they might recognize my face. He loved that line.
That was good for clone Boba saying, yeah, if I walk in, they're going to recognize me. A lot of people might recognize me if they walk in. Brilliant line. Good point, Matt.
All right, some other loyal listeners of this podcast. Camille at Harley Camille says, at first I wasn't crazy about it, but I enjoyed it for being a great episode. I'm ready to get to Gideon. I did enjoy seeing Mando's face, but missed the cockiness of his Game of Thrones character, LOL. I also love the end when Mando tells Gideon that he's basically coming for the son he loves, and Gideon is going to get effed up.
Hell yeah. Hey, Camille, you've given me a good idea. I think, Game of Thrones spoiler here, in case you haven't seen that show, when Pedro Pascal, a.k.a. the Mandalorian, when he's on Game of Thrones, and he's in a big fight, we all know, and he should be finishing off the person he's fighting, but he's instead, who gave the order? Who gave the order? I would love if he brought some of that fiery vengeance to Moff Gideon next week. Who touched my child? Who did it?
Well, let me ask you this, Bubba. We talked about it, but we didn't make any predictions about it. Do you think that we are done with Helmet Off Mando for this season? One more episode? Will we get any helmetless Mando next episode?
A part of me thought that when they reached Grogu, and if Grogu has been tortured and he's angry Grogu using the dark side of the Force, that maybe Mando would remove his helmet and say, hey, it's me. But of course, Grogu would say, who the hell are you? And they attack him. So I think we are done with helmetless. He'll just show the little shiny silver knob from the thruster of R.I.P. the Razor Crest. What do you think? Do you think we're going to see more helmetless Mando?
Oh, that shiny silver knob. Hashtag adult content. All right. I thought we were done with him, but I think that is brilliant. If he's taking his helmet off, he took his helmet off to help Grogu here. I mean, I think you've essentially written already the best season finale. I mean, together, we write them. They send the ice spiders in. It doesn't work. They're all trapped. But Mando takes his helmet off to be like, you and me, bro.
Yep.
Eye to eye. I think that's brilliant, and that's now what I want.
Love it. Okay, another great loyal listener, Laura McMillian, on Twitter, she wrote, loved this chapter. It definitely gave me a new perspective on Mayfield. Plus, I got to explain Operation Cinder to my husband. Oh, wow. All right.
Oh, I love it. Some Cinder-splaining. Nathan Savka said, this has been an amazing season going into chapter 16 strong. Mando is in full dad mode. What will he do for the child? Anything, including breaking his code.
Yeah.
Does it count, though, if everyone who sees your face dies? LOL. I think it still does. Gideon better watch out. It doesn't matter what Jedi shows up. Mando isn't giving up the child. Also, I love how Fett keeps a rattle can in his ship for his armor needs a respray.
Love it. I wish Boba would go to the planet Banksy and really get his armor done up great. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. And then people would come after his armor just because it'd be worth so much money.
Right, exactly. Hey, we got some feedback on last week's chapter. That is, of course, chapter 14, The Tragedy. Tyler Lewis wrote, I rate chapter 14, The Tragedy, 8 triple S's out of 10.
Triple S's?
Stormtrooper Slaughter Squad. Once again, we said, what was it? 72 stormtroopers died in that raid last week. Tyler wrote, it was action-packed, but a very different style than we're used to. Oh, I agree. It felt realistic. as realistic as Star Wars can be, probably to highlight Boba's fighting style. Oh, good point, Tyler.
That was great. You know, what we didn't consider was if there were any pilots in training. PITs. Any PITs, 72 plus any PITs. Rob Rayner Jr. said of Chapter 14, love the episode and has always enjoyed your rambling and gregorable takes. As a triple L.
Wait, triple L?
Yeah, long-time loyal listener. I feel it is my duty to get back to you about my thoughts later. I expect you to watch your feed anxiously for my promised reply that will never come.
And it didn't. Thanks you, Ron.
Ron, thank you for being consistent. When you promised us they would not come back.
They didn't.
Stephen Jones says, hi, guys. Nobody seems to be mentioning that another tragedy of Chapter 14 is that Mando's cool long rifle is also gone. It must have been in the Razor Crest, and the only things he pulled out of that rubble was the ball and the Beskar spear.
That is a great point, Stephen. That rifle, which he used to disintegrate many Jawas, I was thinking somewhere in the world, the Jawas are celebrating, you teeny, never again. It's destroyed. It is time, Catfish, for our good buddy, Double M.
Double M.
Matt Murdock, who is going to take us on a side trip through the music of Chapter 15.
A few things to talk about regarding this week's episode. First of all, timbre. There were a lot more electronics present in this episode than there have been in some of the other episodes this season. Now, electronics are something that Ludwig uses a lot, and depending on how you feel about that, I don't know how you like that in your Star Wars, or if you don't, it's something that we just have to accept for those of us that don't really like it, because it is part of Ludwig's sound. So I'll just say that. Something that we've seen Ludwig use consistently for scenes that have peril or tension is mixed meter. And we heard that a couple of times in this episode. For instance, when the pirates were closing in on the transport, we started to get a lot of riffs in 7/8 or in 7/4 like this. Let me just count along with that so that you get the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We also got a mixed meter when Boba Fett was coming to get them off of the rooftop, except that time it was in 5, like this. Again, mixed meters, because we like our beats symmetrical as humans, for whatever reason, when we get mixed meter, then we feel off. We feel like something's not right. And there's obviously stuff not right going on with our characters at the times that we hear Ludwig apply mixed meter. Now, a lot of the score was based on main theme. It was main theme oriented. If you recall, when the TIE fighters came to save Din on the transport, we heard this. Once again, that's based on the main theme, and it's kind of hard to hear how it is, but there are a couple of really telling things. First, let me play the main theme part that it is taken from. So what's the first thing that we look for that connects what we heard with the TIE fighters and the main theme? The bass line, this. Same notes in the same order. So even if the rhythm's not the same, you can still say you're quoting the main theme because the sequence is the same. In the same respect, he took the emphasized notes from the melody and he just put a little trill on them like this. So he doesn't have to play every melodic note in the melody. He only has to keep the melodic shape for it to be referencing the theme itself. And that's exactly what he did here. Now, the funny thing is, I can't get past this, and forgive me for showing my age, but I just can't get past this. When I heard those little trill notes along with the bass line, I could not help myself because those little trill notes, along with the bass line, remind me of an old 80s hair band called Europe and a song that they did called The Final Countdown. Listen, I'm telling you, Ludwig must be a Europe fan. No, probably not. But listen to this quote from that song and tell me that it doesn't sound like When the TIE Fighters Saved In. Okay, if that doesn't get me fired, I don't think anything will. Especially because Bubba and Catfish would well know what I'm talking about in regards to that song, because we're all showing our age here. The truth of the matter is that after Albenberg's 12-tone roll, you cannot put any sequence of notes or any sequences of harmony together and be completely original. It's impossible. You can make things unique. You cannot make anything original anymore. The only thing that makes things even remotely original anymore is if you add lyrics to melodies. And still then, the melodies may be already borrowed, but the lyrics give it the uniqueness. One last thing to cover here. Did you hear the Boba Fett motif going on when he was releasing the sonic grenade? That's right. We have a confirmed theme for Boba Fett now, at least when he's fighting somebody, because this is twice in a row that we've heard that diminished outline theme being played whenever he's facing a foe. I love the sonic grenades, by the way. That's all I got. Back to the boys.
Oh, that sarcastic Matt. How dare he?
You know what I like is sometimes it's just about the music, but I feel like I learned a lot about counting this week too.
We are the Parsec Passion Podcast, the podcast which answers the question, can there be a Grogorable moment of the episode if there wasn't a Grogorable star in it? Catfish, there was no Grogu. Do you have any Grogorable moments for Chapter 15?
I do.
Okay.
In that what I thought was, because there was a little bit of like, oh, are they killing the good guys when they were having the loot train attack? Mm-hmm. And I thought, what would have been Grogorable? If Grogu was there to eat them, then people wouldn't have had a problem with it. They would have been like, oh, that's cute. Grogu's eating. He's hungry. It's okay that he kills the good guys.
Oh, how about this? Mm-hmm. Mando's like, oh no, I've lost the silver knob to the Razor Crest thruster. I've lost Grogu's little silver ball. I know what I'll do. Frog Lady, got any more unfertilized eggs?
Grogorable.
So, Catfish, some people would say that his Grogorable moment is when Mando says the infamous line. He says, a spin on Gideon's, where he says, he means more to me than you will ever know. What do you think?
He and Grogu got that bond. Yo.
They do. Well, how about this? This was another episode where it felt like somebody other than the Mando had all the Mandalicious lines. The one I wrote down was Boba Fett saying, let's just say they might recognize my face. Love that line. How about you? Did Mayfield get all the good lines, or were there any Mandalicious lines in Chapter 15?
No, I felt like, it was Mayfield. Like when you said everyone's got their lines, they don't cross until things get messy. He did have some good lines. It feels good to have the helmet off. I felt like this week we should just call them brilliant lines.
Because for brown eyes?
No, for Bill Burr.
Oh, okay.
Brilliant. You
got to forgive brown eyes, as we call them. I loved Bill Burr's explanation of why you had to talk loud to brown eyes. He had his ship decompress. Love it.
Oh, man.
All right, Catfish. It is time to get into our grief beef, the Bounty Hunter Guild battle. Who's going to win the puck this week? And listeners, we want your feedback on this. We want to know, of these announced upcoming Star Wars projects, which is the one we should be most excited for? Which is the one that should fill us with fear we should be least excited for? This is where we're going to go through that list that we mentioned at the top of the episode, and we're going to give you our thoughts on which ones we can't wait to see and which ones we can wait to see. This is a big list. I'm going to assume that you don't have any of the animated shows in your, I can't wait to watch this one. Which is your number one? I Gotta see it now.
All right. So, as we've talked about some of my concerns about this show, and then you're trying to fit it into the Star Wars world that we know about, even though it's not after the final trilogy. So, my problem with my concerns about these other shows is also trying to make them fresh and new while putting them in between movies, which means that they can't have a huge effect on the world. And then also having so many other stories that can affect other news stories that we're telling. That's kind of my concern for these.
Yeah.
And the one that I'm most interested in is the one that seems like it's got the least to do with everything else. And also because I love Russian Doll, I'm going to go with The Acolyte, which just sounds fascinating. A galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers. That kind of sounds interesting.
It really, really does. Now, that will not be my most excited. Why? Because I think the great thing is by setting it so far in the story's past, and no character that we would know of would be alive in this time except possibly Yoda, is that you have complete freedom. You aren't tied to anything. You could go in all sorts of great directions. That also scares me because, and admittedly, this wasn't Leslie Headland. I shouldn't label her with this fall, but Lucas, when he really thought I can do anything, he at times presented us a jumbled mess in the prequels, even though the prequels have a lot of good moments in them. And so I am excited for The Acolyte, but it's not my number one. So it's your number one?
That is my number one for sure.
Let me say that Shadowy Secrets and Emerging Dark Side Powers should be my number one. That does sound great. Mystery thriller, that should sound great to me. But call me a big softy. Here I spent some time talking about, hey, this guy who for 2 seasons played the Night King on Game of Thrones, I have some sort of emotional connection to him because I love his portrayal of this speechless character in a mask on that show. I have a bit of nostalgia, and I have a feeling you're not going to agree, but getting Hayden Christensen back in a Star Wars universe, in the Star Wars world, with what I would assume would have to be a director better working with actors than Lucas, that has me so excited. So for that and that reason only, I'm going to put Obi-Wan Kenobi as my most excited about series. Ewan McGregor was very good, even though I don't think he was given the greatest material to work with in the prequels. Hayden was very rough. He had a couple of moments where I think this is how rough it was. There were only a couple of moments in both movies where I thought, oh, he's doing something really effective. Most of the time, I thought he was doing things that actually kind of hurt the portrayal of the character, but I'm going to push some of that onto Lucas. So Hayden Christensen back, Ewan McGregor back. We know that neither of them can die. We know their future, so it's very limited in what this limited series can do. But that is my number one most anticipated. I'm excited for it.
So beautiful that you allow me to segue right into the show that I'm least interested in.
Oh, no, I knew it. Okay, let's hear it.
All right. So part of it is that you mentioned already is that, and what I'd said already is that this is a show about characters we know very well, and that's in the middle of a long journey that we know about. So what are they going to tell me that's new or interesting? As you said, it's only supposed to be a 6-episode limited series, so there won't be that much of me to hate if I do indeed watch it. So that's part of it. The other thing is, I just kind of want to scrub from my mind Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader. I don't even know what are they going to do? Is he going to be helmet off Darth Vader? If he's
well, you
not
love helmet off, so
okay. Because here's our issue: if he's helmet on Darth Vader, then it's not going to be his voice either. So is it just Hayden Christensen doing extra work in a suit?
These are great questions. What in my own mind, the only thing you could technically do, and even then, I don't think he should sound like Hayden. He should sound like James Earl Jones, sound like Darth Vader,
right?
But in Empire Strikes Back, he had that meditation chamber where we only saw him from behind, where he had the helmet off and you saw that ghostly white skull. I would think you could do some classic eye work with the helmet off in the meditation chamber. But now, hold on. Now I'm sounding a bit like the game Clue. So I think what you could do is Hayden Christensen in the meditation chamber with the helmet off.
Okay. All right. Okay. But not with Colonel Mustard. Is he with Colonel Mustard or not with Colonel Mustard?
He found Colonel Mustard's lack of faith disturbing.
Okay, so that's the one that I am completely not interested in. Tell me which one that you are least interested in. You probably don't hate it as much as I hate the idea of this one, but the one that you're least interested in.
This, to me, is the most shocking thing. I always say I'm an OG fan. I saw the original Star Wars in 77 in a theater with my uncle. When I got out, I was too young to really even understand the movie other than to say, I like robots. I'm mentioning that because Star Wars has always been such a movie-going experience. And I want movies to live and movie theaters to live going forward. But the one I'm kind of least excited about is Patty Jenkins' movie. The next movie we're going to get, Rogue Squadron. Now, admittedly, I'm not a gamer. I haven't played the Rogue Squadron video game. I don't have that emotional attachment. But also, the one thing you would assume about Rogue Squadron fighter pilots is they don't have any tie to the Force. And that could be exciting. I think there's ways you could do it. The movie Solo, though, also didn't have any ties really to the Force. Spoiler alert for the very end of Solo, we know. But Rogue One had very minimal ties to the Force. And even though there were great moments in Rogue One and great moments in Solo, I think those movies kind of hurt for it. I think they do have a lesser status in Star Wars fandom because of their limited tie to the mystical force that binds us all together. So because from the description, this Rogue One Squadron doesn't have me excited. And the fact that an upcoming Star Wars film, the announcement of it, didn't make me suddenly start thinking, oh man, this is going to be awesome. That scares me because I'm a huge Star Wars fan scared. That's going to be my least excited about one. How about you? What do you think of Patty Jenkins as director? Are you excited for that one?
I mean, so far from what I've seen, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about this. I mean, I can understand what you're saying about the Force, but for me, it's like any kind of good like science fiction content is good. So it can be ancillary to Star Wars, not involve the Force, and I will love it as long as it is well done. Which is it's well done, it's acted, it's well written. Which is why I don't want to see the Obi-Wan Kenobi limited series.
What a hater. Prequel hater.
I brought it back around. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, is that Hayden on the corner there?
Listen,
yes.
did you see Shattered
Glass? Oh my goodness, it is Mr. Christensen.
He was great in Shattered Glass. Now you hated the character he was playing, but you were supposed to. I think in that one film, and that may be the only non-Star Wars thing I've ever seen him in that one film, I think he was actually really good in that role. So fingers crossed, Hayden's going to come ready to kick some tail. That's my hope. Listeners, once again, who cares what we think? We're going to watch all this stuff. We want you to watch all this stuff, but tell us, which of these upcoming projects are you most excited about? Which are you least excited about? Why are you so excited about Lando or Ahsoka or Cassian Andor or these animated shows or Taika Waititi? Tell us why. Start this dialogue. Help us get through the next couple of months where we're not spitting out another podcast to drive you crazy on.
Hey, also, if you've got another option to be in the Magnificent Seven besides The Mandalorian, please let us and Rob the Toon Man know.
What if Ugnulty's corpse is dragged?
Amazing.
Terrible.
Amazing.
Hey, we're going to end this podcast the way we end every episode of the Parsec Passion podcast by telling you our good grief. Something great out there in the world. It could be in this episode of The Mandalorian. It could be in The Mandalorian as a whole, in the Star Wars community, in the world at large. We know, Catfish, that you are getting a new puppy. Everybody's very excited about that. But do you have a unique good grief for this week?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna, even though we've talked a lot about it, I'm gonna say my good grief is the announcements that Disney Plus is gonna do a lot more of these Star Wars content. The Marvel content I'm a little bit more concerned about, but I just love it. I love that, when we were younger, there was not a lot of this kind of content.
No.
And if it was, it probably wasn't very well done. And so I just love that we're going to have a lot more of this kind of stuff and more stuff that we could talk about and just more stuff that tickles my fancy. So even though I was skeptical about Disney Plus and their subscriber, I don't want to call them fantasies, their hopeful subscriber numbers, I'm all in on this, and I'm glad that they're doing it. So what's your good grief of the week, Bubba?
It's also something I've mentioned on this podcast. All the Star Wars fans I hear from, I see from, I just seeing the Star Wars community excited and happy and not complaining. It's sadly been too long. Every Star Wars property, going back to Return of the Jedi, I've seen it argued that every Star Wars property, the fans have had some sort of complaint about. People love Return of the Jedi, but back then, and even to this day, some people were like, these Ewoks, teddy bears are going to take down the Empire. They can't be that big of a threat. Forward into the to the TV movies like the Ewoks Caravan of Courage. Oh boy, better leave that unsaid. The prequels people had so many problems with. The new Disney films people have always found issues with, even though, boy, there's a lot of good stuff in them too. The fact that we have a show, which the roughest thing people complain about, it's like, well, boy, this feels like a lot of side quests, enjoyable side quests. The fact that everybody's on board, it is great. It is a great time to be a Star Wars fan. It is a great time to be a podcaster talking about Star Wars with a bunch of great listeners. So that is my good grief for the week.
Nice. Well, this is good. We're excited. And next week,
oh man,
now I'm going to be sad again.
I am too, just by realizing what next week is. Oh no.
I'm fine if next week's episode is about 4.5 hours long. So that's fine for me if they decide to sort of supersize the episode by 1,000%. So then we have the questions: is if they save Mando from the clutches of Moff Gideon, what is next? Or will they all be under the threat of Moff Gideon?
Oh, I love that.
Man.
I love that. Once again, at double PHQ, the word double, the single letter P, the letters HQ for headquarters, at double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, facebook.com/double PHQ. Give those Facebook likes, give those Facebook comments. We love them. For everybody here for Double P Media, my name's Bubba, and you can find me on Twitter at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter.
And I am Catfish. You can hit me up at CJGMAN67 on Twitter. Remember, the Double PHQ Mothership, and we will talk to you for the last time in 2020 next week on...
It's better with the podcast off. Parsec Passion.
Parsec Passion.